Good evening.
Hi, Christopher. Hello, Dr. Case.
Hi, Niamat. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Doing well. I didn't have to drive 2+ hours round trip today, so that was kind of nice.
Oh, perfect.
I just get to sit in my office and go to
Mm.
class, learn from the good doctor.
Yeah, the weather is so crazy outside.
I think it just started raining here again in Winchester, so we've had quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
like everyone else. So I wonder who else will show up tonight. How's the baby?
She's fine. She's with her father today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
put him to work. Change those diapers.
Sometimes he change it, yeah, but but he don't care about the details like me.
Oh, well, you got to teach him the details.
Yeah, I have to.
You have to teach him the details. Looks like someone else is joining us.
I don't know.
Yes, this is what it does. Zayed. Hello, Zayed.
Mm.
Oh, are you getting all your work done this week, Nehemiah?
Not yet. I was checking the grades. The research discussion for does not grade it yet.
Yeah. Well, I already did the quiz for this week, and I'm through one of the three questions on the research discussion. So I'll have those done first thing tomorrow morning and
Oh,
posted.
yeah.
I just work on it. Mondays are my reading and downloading and reviewing the PowerPoints and all of that. I just set up my days like that.
Yeah.
Gotta put yourself I have to put Christopher on a schedule for getting work done. Otherwise, Christopher won't do work.
Yeah.
Give me one moment. I'll be right back.
Okay, doctor.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good.
All right. How's everybody doing today?
Doing well, thank you. How are you today?
Not too bad. Not too bad. What did I freeze? Strange. Huh, okay, either way. All right. All right. We're gonna start. Any questions, comments? I haven't graded anything as of yet this week for the most part. So I should get to that hopefully by tonight or tomorrow. Okay. All right. Do you guys have any issues with your groups aside from the uh the email traffic that was going around? Okay.
Well,
Ruben.
the only thing I think for us is I guess I'll email her on her Gmail account
No.
unless you've told
Okay.
her to go to the school account.
No, whatever account she has, she needs to be checking um that account. So you can do it if you feel like it. It's not, you know, anything out of pocket. It just, I just need her to understand that she needs to go to the
School.
school email and not to expect people to go check personal emails. Especially she can't send them to your personal email, and expect that you're gonna get it.
Right. Or at, the 11th hour
Right.
type of thing.
Exactly. There's no reasonable expectations. I know she sent it on Saturday.
Yeah.
That's
ten
that's
twenty
not
PM.
yeah, that is not a reasonable expectation for group work.
Yeah,
So
it was already submitted by then.
yeah, it's just yeah. So just reach out to her for the next one or reach out to her this week, just like, hey, this is what we're doing for next, or just be ready, check your email, send it to both. Okay, thanks. Ruben, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Ruben, are you enrolled in class or you not enrolled?
I'm not sure because I got a call from the team that I was not enrolled in this class, and then I was like figuring out what's going on. And today I had a call with Jean,
Yeah.
and she said that I am in this class, so that I will focus on the assignments which are pending, and I'll
Okay.
try to finish it by today or tomorrow, and I'll resubmit all the assignments.
Okay, because you missed out on. Did you get a chance to work on your group RD?
Yeah, so yesterday we all came on call and we decided to resubmit everything.
Okay.
So we also emailed you for that at the same time when we were talking on call and video call for our research discussion.
Okay. So did you resubmit already or?
Um, Gloria's already did. Mine and Nara is pending. I will do it tonight or tomorrow morning.
No, no, it's a group RD, so it's one for the whole group.
Oh, then I think he submitted all.
Okay. Okay. All right. I'll take a look at it. I just want to
Okay.
make sure that you're covered.
Okay.
I wasn't sure if you were, at one point they said you were in, then they said that you weren't enrolled, and they said, so I'm confused as to what's going on.
Yes, so today we cleared that out, and today they said that yes, I need to take this class. So
Okay.
now I will focus on it, and I'll try to get my grades back.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. All right. What are we? Week 5? Okay. So week 5, we got technically 4 more weeks left. All right. Hopefully at this point, you've, got a decent idea of, what your paper is going to look like and it's coming together, at least looking like a paper. So I think the final draft is due this week, if I'm not mistaken, maybe.
Yes, doctor. Is it? I think it's too fast to submit the final draft this week in week 5, isn't it?
No, they do this they do it on purpose. Because normally it'd be week 6, but for the doctoral programs, it's week 5.
Mm-hmm.
Just so they can give you more time to kind of integrate the feedback.
Okay, okay.
So, like I said last week, I'm not expecting, a complete work. I'm just expecting to see what you've done thus far. Because everybody writes at different tempos, and does different things differently. So I'm not looking for if you have 6 pages and that's all you've written, Give me the 6 pages.
Okay. And
Okay.
regarding the structure of the paper, do we have to put all the titles and the subtitles inside, even if it's empty?
No, just give me what you've done thus far. Any
Okay.
sections or any areas you haven't done yet, you haven't done yet.
Okay. Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you, Doctor.
Okay. Any other questions on that? Okay, so you can tell we're on Zoom due to the weather. All right, so not my favorite mode of teaching. So this definitely is going to be a very quick, down and dirty course or class, as I say. Um, please feel free to ask questions, intervene like we were just in class. No big deal. It's just the interaction is just a little different for me. All right. Okay, so today we're gonna do training and we're gonna try to get into performance management systems. Okay, so as you know, you looked at your company strategically, and you're trying to develop the skill sets. One of the things that HR is really kind of not responsible for, but really manages and is of the highest priority is training, right? Training and development, right? Training, does a lot of things for the company, but primarily we're trying to see, what is it that, the workforce has as far as skill sets and how can we improve upon those things? Because we know if we improve upon the individual skill sets, when we put them together, that will give us, an increase in productivity, maybe efficiency, and eventually we'll get to the bottom line where we'll see the results of the training. All right. So training, is done for many reasons. All right. Either, the skill sets that we have are obsolete. There's new things on the market that requires to, get training. There's training in the sense of remediation, right? People have lost kind of their skill set or they're not really proficient at what they're doing. And so we have to introduce training into that particular scenario. All right. Training can just be for enhancement. Okay. It could just be for the sense of, hey, I want to pick something else up. I want to understand something a little bit better. And so I'm going to, go ahead and apply or get into this training. From an organizational standpoint, training is all about long-term objectives. Okay. What skill sets do I need to develop within the organization that align with the organizational objectives? Right. It really is what training is about. Right. And is that training, feasible? Is it, scalable? Is it affordable? Right. Is the training conducive to, us being successful in whatever industry or whatever thing we're doing? And so all those things kind of get looked at, and it's also used as sort of, leverage or not leverage, but as a benefit, to the employee when we're looking at, bringing people on and what we can offer to them as far as certain, training programs or, training skill sets and that kind of thing, because it's a big deal because most people, especially nowadays, are not going to stay at the same company for a long time. And so for them, they always look at what's in it for me. It's, excuse me, aside from the normal pay, that kind of thing, people are looking at ways in which they can add tools to their toolkit. And one of those ways is through training. Now, if you've ever done any type of training that you have to pay for yourself, training is expensive, right? Training is not cheap. And so if I can get the company to pay for my training in certain areas and receive a certification or some, kind of credential that goes to the training, that's even better. Right. And so companies use that as some leverage when they're negotiating contracts with new people that they're hiring, right? Because that training does have a dollar value attached to it, right? And that you're getting. They also at times will add some kind of obligation to your existing contract, right? If you do this training, you may have to stay on an additional year, or you may have to commit to at least 2 years with the company. And from that point forward, you can go ahead and leave and decide what you want to do. But usually, if you are taking on the training, you're usually okay and you plan on staying with the company a little bit longer than, just a year or two. And so it's always, it's a kind of a win-win situation on both parts. Okay. For individuals, when they look at training, right, they see that they're marketable or more marketable, right? They can go out into the world and they no longer, don't they fit that, experience that most companies are looking for. The problem with, a number of people when they're coming out straight out of college is that there's always that experience challenge, right? That experience barrier. I don't have this experience. I don't have that, right? Even if you don't have the experience in that particular area, if you have the training that you've gone through or you've, kind of attended, you can count that as experience because whatever you did during the training counts as experience or exposure to that thing. Now, there's a difference between exposure and mastery, right? Are you a master of this particular thing? Are you, proficient in it? Or do you just have a working knowledge of it? And usually, most times, a working knowledge is sufficient enough because guess what? If you go work for another company, guess what they're going to do? They're going to give you training. Okay. All companies want you to get training from them because they have a specific way in which they do a particular thing, which is done by pretty much everybody in the industry, but they have their way of doing it. And there's other things that they're trying to instill in you as far as organizational culture, maybe the values, maybe the way, we kind of do things around here. That kind of attitude, that kind of mindset is what goes into training when we look at, hey, offering it to employees. It happens pretty much every time you get a new job, right? You get the training, and sometimes it's repetitive. Okay, sometimes training you already had, you're good at whatever it is you're doing, but you know what? The company has a certain tweak or certain preference in how they do it. Okay, so that's one thing. All right. The other thing for employees, aside from marketability, is security, right? If you are willing to invest in me as an employee, right, then that gives me a sense of security that, okay, the company wants to keep me around for a while. The company is open to, seeing me stay here long term and I could actually have a long career with this company, right? I can stay here 10, 15, 20 years. That's the kind of sentiment that you really convey when you start talking about offering training to your employees, because then they kind of get the sense that you see some potential in them, that you see them as either, being groomed for high level positions and more responsibilities, which means, more money, of course, right? And more clout and stature within the organization, right? And so, employees definitely look at that as a positive thing as far as being secure in their position, in their job, with that company. It's very rare that a company's going to train you and then let you go. It's not, unless something catastrophic has to happen for that to occur. All right. All right. So within the organization, the company is always trying to, of course, increase their efficiency and profitability. All right. At the end of the day, that's all it's about. Follow the money and you will figure out why all decisions are being made. All right. They're all financial in some aspect and some respect as to, where are we doing this training? How is it tied to the objectives of the company? How those objectives tied to our revenue? How the revenue tied to the profit? All right. How all those things tied to, return on investments for the vested members, right? The people that have stock and ownership and that kind of thing, right? All those things are tied in for them when it comes to training, right? All right. All right. How we strategize training. Just a quick exhibit or figure on how, training is looked at. I think everybody can see that. Let me see. Hopefully. All right. So really, when we start training, the first thing we really want to look at is what? Before we do any training, what is it that we really want to look at?
We want to know if there are deficiencies we need to work on or make efficient,
Right.
or improve areas where we need to improve.
Exactly. All right. You need
The
to look at
contents of training,
Go ahead.
the contents of training. What are we going to train?
Yeah, what are we going to train, right? But initially, we need to look at the organization top to bottom and figure out, one, do we need training? All right. Two, if we do need training, where do we need training at? Okay. And at what levels? All right. Just because an individual needs training doesn't mean that the whole company needs training. All right. Um, just because there's certain things, tasks, or duties that someone or a particular department needs training in doesn't mean that each individual within that department needs to go to the training. Right. And so we have to do a really thorough assessment to figure out where is the training necessary. Okay, where is it needed at, right? um Training can be, voluntary or optional or just something to do, but most times people just don't have time to just do stuff because they want to do it, right? Not in the work environment. So it's very much, a process in making sure that we assess the organization to figure out, what training, where are flaws, where are the gaps, where are the friction points. And then once we figure that out, we can kind of get to the point of, all right, prioritizing what's important, what's not important, right? Based on whatever criteria, be it money, time, upcoming projects, those kind of thing, right? And then once we get through that, we get to the design and delivery phase where we figure out, okay, how are we going to tailor this particular training? How are we going to deliver it? Are we going to have someone in-house do it? Are we going to hire a third party to do it? Are we going to do it on site? Are we going to do it at an external site or off-site? Are we going to, do it where maybe it's, half the day and then the other half is dedicated to, your regular job? There's a lot of different components, especially now when, we can do training online. You can do training at any time of the day that you like, right? So once we figure that out, we kind of, put it out there on the platform and kind of go with it, right? And then at the end of the day, we do our evaluation process, and of course, after the evaluation is the feedback. But we'll stick to evaluation for right now, right? We want to figure out, did learning occur, right? Was there transfer of learning? All right, that's the term we're looking for. And so we want to evaluate you, and there's different evaluation mechanisms. It could be an exam, it could be a practical application, it could be, something that you do live on the job. It could be a deliverable that you have to give to your boss, and that is going to require you to use the new training. It could be a whole lot of different modes, but the evaluation will give us an idea as to how well the person absorbed the training, first thing, and also an indication of, hopefully, how well the training was delivered. Was the training effective, right? Just because you understood the training doesn't necessarily mean the training was effective. All right. Because if you don't come back and implement that training into your day-to-day activities and it manifests itself in your work and what you're producing, then it's really kind of pointless, right? Unless it's just some personal training that you're getting because you're trying to improve on some skills that you already have, and it's really not going to impact anyone except for you, and you're not going to really use it as much, right? And so the evaluation process is important, but following that is the feedback, right? And the feedback loop is really where we get the substance of information and data about the training, because the students that are in the training, we really want to get honest opinion and thoughts about, what did you think about the training? Was the trainer, the person delivering the training, do you think they were qualified? Did you understand what they were saying? Did you like the mode of training? Did you think that there was a better way to do it, right? Would you like to see different things within the training? Maybe more practical application, maybe more group work, maybe more individual work, whatever the case may be, right? Was the time good, right? Even down to those things. Would you rather off-site or on-site training? Okay. All those things go into the mix for the next time when we do training, because we want to optimize the training. And based on research, we know that people learn better when they are comfortable, when they are, in a good environment that they are ready to absorb the information. All right. So if you're tired, if you're hungover, if you're hungry, if you have other things in life that are just going on and it's distracting you from training and focusing, it's going to show in evaluation. It's going to show down the road, right? As to when you know, how much of the information you absorb, how well, you know, you're doing as compared to other people, right? Which is the, you know, the other thing, right? We take, you know, an average of the class as far as, you know, how they did the evaluation, and then that's going to be used as our metric, right? This is the bar. You know, are you below the bar or above the bar, excuse me, or below the bar, right? We kind of figure out on that scale. And then even for the person delivering the training, it's a useful tool because then you can kind of see like, okay, you know, how many people were below, how many people were above, right? And then maybe you can even go down deeper. It's like, were there certain areas where people did well and certain areas where they didn't do well, right? And try to correlate that back to your teaching style and correlate that back to what you taught. Maybe you taught a certain thing, you focus on a certain thing, but you didn't put it on the exam. You put something else on the exam or the evaluation process where you should have, you know, at least focused in on whatever it is you was going to put on the evaluation. You should probably focus in on that if it's that important, right? And so it works both ways in which it helps the student and it also helps the trainee, right? Or the trainer, excuse me, both the trainer and the trainee, right? Helps them both, right? So the feedback is critically important, and it's not on here, but it's one of the key things to making this whole process really work well, right? And to be beneficial to everyone. Because I need to know, you know, as much as people may not, we may say, oh, you know, your opinion doesn't count. Your opinion does count. Okay, your opinion counts for a whole lot because that is the driving force behind what the company does, right? As far as training and some other initiatives. Why would I spend money on something that 95% of the workforce thinks is stupid or useless, right? There's no point in doing that kind of training. It's like, okay, no one is getting any benefit from it. They don't like it. They don't like doing it. They don't like being here. And they don't utilize it when they go back to their desk, right? They don't incorporate it into their work. So I'm not going to going to spend money on that. I'd rather spend money on something else. Okay. All right, levels of needs assessment. Basically, this is what we kind of talked about already, right? Kind of looking at each level and trying to figure out, you know, what are some of the implications, what are some of the ramifications of the training, right? What is it that we really need at each level, and what is it that each level gets, sort of, right? Because what's important at the individual level is not important at the organizational level, okay? And there's different timelines for different things at the organizational level, we may need to get to a certain point very quickly, right? That may not necessarily impact the individual level because we may say, you know what, we're going to train our people, but on a, you know, extended timeline, and we're going to outsource this particular thing for the next year till we get our people spun up, right? But on the individual level, it may be different. It may be, you know, hey, we need to get this thing ran up right now for the job. But the organizational level, it may not be such a priority. Okay. And so you got to look at each level and what they need and what it needs through your needs assessment, right? Which is the most important part about really figuring out the training and what it is that needs to be addressed. Okay. So, and I've been saying this since, you know, day one, week one, right? Training and everything else that goes along or goes on in the organization, it's always about how do those things line up with the organizational objectives. Okay. No different in training, right? What are we training to? Okay. What are we training to? Right. And we have to have some training thing, and it has to directly correlate to some objective, right? To some outcome or some goal that we have so that we can justify the training, right? If you can't line up your training objectives with a particular organizational objective, then you probably don't need to do that training. Okay. You can't fit into the category of something on a higher level, you probably don't need it. Okay. Not for that particular job. Okay. So you have to look at, okay, yes, I want to take a, you know, I don't know, Java course, right? How does that align with your job? And how does that job align with your department's responsibilities? And how do your department responsibility align with the organizational responsibilities, right? Or organizational objectives? Do all those things kind of are they, you know, it's kind of a foundation. You kind of stack them, right? I can make a direct line from the training I'm getting to an objective that we have as a company, right? Our objective is to become, a major player in the IT industry. Okay, well, does that require Java? Yeah, it requires Java. Does it require some cybersecurity? Yeah, it requires cybersecurity. Okay, so we start to see where this training is going to benefit or is attached or correlated to some higher level objective, right? And so we have to make sure that one, our training objectives, make sense, right? But the more important thing is that if you're trying to attach it to or correlate it to a higher level organizational objective, the organizational objective has to be correct also, right? It's kind of like garbage in, garbage out. If the organizational objective is off and it really is not um, conducive to the company growing or benefiting the company in any way, then the training that you're doing is not going to be beneficial to the company, right? Because you're following the organizational objective, and the organizational objective is going nowhere, right? That means you're going nowhere as far as the company goes, right? As far as this particular job and what you're doing, because the objectives are not set, they're unreasonable, they're unattainable, they're just unrealistic, or maybe they just are outdated. Okay, but the organizational objectives play a huge role in giving your training objectives, validity, right? Giving them some reason, some justification as to why you're getting it, because it fulfills or it contributes to us getting to our organizational objective, but the organizational objective have to be in line with what the CEO and the COO and whatever the company outlook is for the next 5 to 10 years, wherever they're trying to get to, right? It has to line up. All right. All right. Let me see. So one of the things that, when it comes to training and trying to, figure out where training is necessary is, the performance management system, right? Because that will give your boss, an idea, okay, where could we use some training? Based on my objective analysis or evaluation of you, I feel that you could use some training in personal soft skills. I think you can use some training in, whatever the case may be, something else, right? And you should get all those things during your performance evaluation, right? When you sit down, you talk to your boss, and we start talking about your performance, right? Whether it be formal, informal, whatever the case may be, that serves as a source to where we start talking about, okay, what training do we need? Okay. Because again, if I have you working for me and I have you in a certain job and I know what those responsibilities and the tasks and the duties that you have to do, right? And those are attached to an organizational objective, I need to make sure that if you're deficient in one of those things, that I know and that I also give you the resources that you need in order to get better at it. All right. And this is one of the issues within the corporate environment is that they want you to do better in certain areas, but they don't always allow for the training. Or if the training is allowed, it's very rushed. It's not, necessarily comprehensive. In many occasions, it's really just a check in the box for the company to say, look, we gave you training. Um, it's not our fault you didn't take to it. Right. And then that is just a platform to start to build a case against you to what? To let you go. Okay. Because you're not performing. But one of the things you need to do as a leader, as someone who's evaluating people, is to step back and take a look at yourself. Take a look at the process and the infrastructure that's there, and look at the ins and outs of the performance management system. Right? Is it a good performance management system? Is it unbiased? Is it objective? Is it fair to everyone? All right? Is it realistic? Is it attainable? Is it where there's some scenario or some situation where the person didn't have an opportunity in which to perform in a certain capacity, right? You can't perform in a certain way if you're not given the opportunity to perform, right? And so you have to really take all those things into consideration. One of the the things that, not so much in corporate America, but I know for me in the military, when I was in charge of a lot of people, writing or doing evaluations can become very tedious, right? And boring and cumbersome, all right? And when you really have people that are exceptional at what they do, and you have a whole bunch of them, it's very, very difficult to differentiate them in the group, right? Because if they're all great, they're all fantastic, what is the thing that they don't do well, right? What do I need to highlight? And how is, that deficiency, that they have, how is that compared to, another person and what deficiency they have? Is there a common deficiency? Or is that this person just better at this particular area and this person isn't, right? But for the evaluator, there's a certain fatigue that sets in, right? Because it's kind of looking at your paper too long. It all starts looking the same. Okay. And so you kind of have to start to really step back and kind of refresh yourself every time and evaluate the person from an individual personal perspective, not just as another, person. That's not another number, that's another evaluation. Right. I have to step back, and it's kind of like when I look at each and every one of your research discussions, I don't grade them on a group basis. I grade them on an individual basis, right? I grade them on the fact that I know a little bit about your personalities, a little bit about your character. I know a little bit about, kind of where you're at as far as understanding of the topic and, your acumen in general, right? And so I have to look at those things and grade the discussion based on the merits of what you submitted, right? It may not necessarily be your best work. You may have a bad week where it's like, hey, I just had a bad week, busy, a lot of things going on, so this is not my best work. But at the same time, I have to be objective about, how I grade it, but also keep in mind, like, this person is consistently a high performer. So if they're having a bad week, maybe I should give them some leniency. Maybe I should understand that, right? And implement that within my evaluation process, right? Because it wouldn't be fair necessarily to say you had a bad week, so I'm going to give you 7 points out of 14 because this is not really that great. It's not that it's not fair, but common sense, right? Which is something that you have to apply when you're a leader. Common sense and just being compassionate and understanding that life issues do pop up, but if you have someone who's consistently performing in a certain way, you have to take that in consideration. All right. And so it becomes mundane a lot of times as the evaluator, right? And for me, or for any evaluator, not to get kind of caught into the rut of just, okay, this is 1 out of 50, 2 out of 50. And I'm just kind of cutting and pasting and kind of going through things like boom, 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 right? There's no individuality. There's really no difference in the evaluation process. And then what I'm going to get is I'm going to get everybody either all in the middle or skewed one way or the other, because I'm just basically blanketing everybody's grade or everybody's evaluation. Okay. Now, if everybody's evaluation are the same, that's great, but for the most part, people pick up on those things. Right. And so to get back to my point I was making about the performance management system, that is really, one of the major places that we look at to figure out, okay, what training is necessary, all right? And so it's critical that the evaluations are done at a high level and fairly, okay, because they are really the catalyst for a lot of other things. They really, are the major input into, promotions, into training, into lateral moves into different areas, right? If you consistently evaluate at a certain level, and you want to go to different program or different department, I may say no because I don't feel like you are up to par based on your evaluations, right? And the thing is that the evaluations need to be objective because I may not be the one that's deciding. as your immediate supervisor, it may be my boss who has minimal to no contact with you, right? The only thing they have are the evaluations. And so the evaluations play a critical role in deciding who moves up, who moves down, because all I see is what's on the paper. Okay. And so it's important that, you know, the evaluations are done properly and so that we can identify areas for training. And so we give the people the best chance to go ahead and kind of move up and excel in their career and not hold them back or not, deny them the resources that they need. All right. Any questions, comments?
Well, I think as far as like the training as it ties to the performance evaluations,
Mm,
like if you're if the training has been provided and they've been able to do the skills, their performance evaluation should reflect that.
mm,
If they haven't been able to pick up the skills, then it requires diving into why.
mm,
Is it, the old training method is most of us teach the way we learn, but is what we're trying to teach is that person, do they learn it the same way or do they learn it in a different way and they don't get it because we're not teaching it to them the right way? And how does that tie into the evaluation process of things? And I know I'm sure you did as well in the military when you were doing your fitness reports and that's our performance evaluation in the Marine Corps. You probably sought guidance and input from your senior enlisted leaders on people as well, which I think that helps take out some of that mundane piece. But I understand exactly what you're talking about when you're doing fitness reports on 8 or 10 people. It does get cumbersome that way. But I always think, and I would always tell, whoever is in a leadership position that has to do evaluations, go to if you're not the immediate supervisor, go to their immediate supervisor. If you are their immediate supervisor, talk to others who may have interacted with them
mm.
who are at parallel levels with you, or someone else who can provide good input.
Yeah, no, you make some good points there, Christopher. Because again, the immediate supervisor doesn't necessarily mean that that's the person with the most perspective on that individual, right? And so the issue that you run into is whether the evaluator has time to do that, right? Whether the evaluator can go ahead and find somebody that can give them more insight on that person, right? And then if you're if you're garnering information from someone else for an evaluation, you also have to assess the source that you're getting it from. Is that person well-rounded? Is that person objective? Is that person unbiased? All right. Is that person uh, capable of giving you a formalized summary of the person's achievements in a way that's understandable and transferable for me to just you say, okay, I see what you said. They did all this. Okay. And I take your word for it. Is it easy for me to just take that and just boom, put it on the evaluation and say, you know what, these are the things that the person has done. Um, and so all that goes into play, but it's important that that the evaluator has time and does do that for the benefit of the person being evaluated. Anything else? Okay, cool. All right. Good point, Christopher. Appreciate it. All right. So, when we're looking at, design and delivery, right, and trying to figure out, you know, what's the best, mode, as Christopher had alluded to earlier, right? And that's extremely important point. How do people learn the most efficient or most, the best way, right? What is the best learning method for people? And so usually, you can't cater to everyone's learning style, unfortunately, right? Good thing for us that a majority of people kind of learn the same way, as far as, you know, visual or through practical application. Um, the bigger the class or the group, the harder it is to really individualize the training, right? The training has to be somewhat general in nature, and a form has to be decided on that's going to, not only work for the student in learning, but also work for the delivery of the information. Okay, am I gonna have enough time to do it? Is this the best way to do it? Do I need to incorporate some kind of practical application, right? How much is it gonna cost, right? Cost is always a big issue in training. Okay, and so when we look at all those things, right, we also have to take into account, right, the human aspect of things, right? And like I said, it's the interference from and difficulty of overcoming training, prior trained learning and habits, right? I have to, when it comes down to learning, I have to get through all these blocks that you have. Okay. Now you may not think of it that way because you're the one that's getting evaluated or doing the training, right? And you may not think of it as a block per se, just something that you don't like to do, or you don't want to, you're not interested in, right? But it's something that I, as the instructor, have to get through, right? And just for instance, like when I teach my statistics class, the first day is always, I hate math. I'm scared of math, right? That is a mental block that I have to kind of get through. That's an interference thing that I have to kind of get you to relax and just say, understand, like, look, you will understand this. Just do the work, put your time in. I'm here to help. If you have any questions, I will help you out, right? But that's all interference, right? I have to get through all your bad habits, all your fears, right? And all the things that you knew from before, right? That you kind of are bringing into this class that are, of course, are contributing to the learning experience, but at the same time, they may be contradictory to what I'm teaching. All right. They may not line up with exactly with what you thought or you thought you knew about it. And sometimes it's, old stuff, or, sometimes it's not paying attention and the teacher's out of date with the stuff. Like even I wasn't on a date, but the point that Christopher made last week when we talked about the Equal Pay Act and we talked about the gender pay, right? That was a basically drilled in stat that everybody spouts off, right? As a surface level thing. Oh, women make 77 cents for every dollar a man makes. It's gone from 50 cents to 60 cents to 75 to 77 to 80 something, right? It's been drill. But if you really look behind the scenes, we saw that that wasn't the case. There are a lot of external factors, right? So that's something that, as an instructor, you have to kind of get through those things because you may yourself may not have known that or may not have delved into that particular area and may believe or may be a proponent of that particular point, right, of that particular concept, where the students bring something new to the class and saying, look, that's not the case. I've done some research and boom, here it is, right? You also, as the instructor, as the person that's doing the training, have to be able to absorb and get your guard down and get through your barriers of not accepting new information, not learning yourself, right? Because I don't know everything. I don't claim to know everything, right? And so for me personally, as an instructor, when someone gives me some new piece of information or says, hey, that's not correct, or I'm curious and like, okay, well, show me what's right, let me see it. And if you can show it to me, I can see it, then by all means, absolutely. And this is part, especially at this level, you have to have that. Okay, your doctoral candidates, you have to have that inquisitive kind of like questioning mind, right? This is where you do it. Okay, this is where you ask the questions and you question everything. Like, oh, I don't know about this. You may not bring it up right away, but you definitely question it, right? And so there's all these things that you have to kind of get through. Excuse me, bad habits. People just, either, don't take notes. They're not paying attention. They're trying to do three different things, at the same time while we're trying to learn. This is why it's important that you figure out, okay, are we going to do it on site or off site? Are we going to do it in the morning? what's the training going to look like after lunch, right? Which we call the death hour, basically, right? Is it ideal to stuff 4 different concepts into a day? Maybe I need to trim it down to one concept because this particular concept is very difficult to understand and it serves as a foundation. So I need to go ahead and tailor my schedule to make sure that I dedicate this whole time to this particular concept and I'll catch up on the other ones, right? When I do standard deviation, I usually dedicate a whole class to it because it's one of the harder concepts to kind of get initially. But regression, right, or correlation is very easy concept. People pick up on that pretty quickly. So I kind of catch up on those particular areas, right? On that area when I talk about it, right? So you got to get through that, right? When or how do you, measure whether or not the individual actually took the skill sets that they learned and applied it to the job, right? I have to make sure that I design the training in a way where the person can take that newly found information and apply it somehow to their job right away. Okay. And that is always what you'd like to see. Right. Someone goes to training, boom, soon as they get back, they're applying it. Right. And so you'll see many instances where, it'll be a half-day training. We're going to train from 8 to 12. And I'll see you tomorrow. What's expected of you is that you're going to go back to your desk at 1 or whatever. And then from 1 to 4, you try to apply whatever the new skill set that you learned, right? That you try to put it into your routine. Maybe it's a report that's due, or maybe it's just whatever you're doing on a day-to-day basis. You try to incorporate those things, right? And then come back the next day and say, you know what, Dr. Case, I tried what you taught us yesterday. It almost worked, but I got stuck here. Or I got through it, but then I hit this roadblock. I figured it out, but then I wasn't really sure how I figured it out. Right? Like it worked, but I don't know how. I don't know why it worked. I don't know why I did what I did. And that way, you could come back to the table the next day and say, give me feedback, right? And maybe say, you know what, you didn't talk about this, but I incurred or this problem occurred, right? I ran into this particular issue, but you didn't talk about it. So can we go back and talk about it, right? Can we bring it up, right? And so it does a lot of beneficial things for depending on how you're going to deliver the training and how you're going to design the training form, right? It's important that you give people enough time to absorb the training and be able to go back and say, you know what, let me try to implement it, right? And not have too much time to where they will forget what they learned, right? Which is another issue, right? You learn something on Monday, we do a week of training, you go back to work the following Monday, and now you need to kind of recollect what you learned on last week so you can use it. It's difficult, all right? So it's better just, kind of, okay, have some recent exposure to whatever the training was, and then go back while it's still fresh in your mind and try to implement it. So different, things dictate, how you set up your design and that kind of thing, right? But you always want to make sure that the organization is supporting training, right? And if you run into an organization that doesn't support training, you probably want to leave. Okay? You probably want to go. That organization is not going to last long. Okay? It's not, because it's basically resting on their laurels, and their motto probably is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay? It doesn't have to be broke to get more training, right? It doesn't have to be broke to be better. Okay? You can just want to get better, or you can just start making your way towards an objective to getting better and to being able to do more things. Okay? And so if you don't have an organization or even a boss that is really conducive to you going to training, right? Then you probably want to find a new boss, find a new job, find a new company, right? And that's not to say that, your boss may want you to go, but you can't go because of other things, right? That's okay, right? I understand that, right? Time is always of the essence. But if you have a boss that clearly does not want you to go training because one, they don't want to do the work themselves, right? or two, they don't want to deal with, having a gap and some other person picking up the slack, or you're just so, indispensable that they can't let you go for a week. That's a lot of nonsense. All right. No one that is that important. No one. Okay. I don't care who it is. No one's that important. And if you are reliant on one person to make the machine go, you're another heap of set of trouble. Okay. You should never rely on one person to be the go-to person. All right. As far as like, oh, without this person, everything crumbles. All right. It can't be, LeBron James. And when LeBron James sits, we lose every game. Okay. It needs to be, hey, LeBron needs to sit. We need to step up. Right. Next man up. And you do that, by training your folks, by having them ready to go. Right. By having them exposed to different things, but you only can do that through training. All right. All right. Comments, questions? Okay.
Dr. Case, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
I've been myself involved in trainings before, and I appreciate the point you mentioned about training efficiency and trainings take time, you see. Myself, I was training staff essentially before I was in the hotel industry. I worked for a while in the manufacturing. And trainings take time. I mean, to see results, you cannot like buckle training in 2 or 3 weeks. Sometimes it takes between 3 to 6 months.
Absolutely.
So I agree with your point, and I myself, lived that in a practical way.
Yeah.
My question is, I always, whether I was in the middle management level or senior management, I always was interested to see other departments, what's going on in the other departments.
Okay.
And I would say maybe it was very seldom I got the opportunity to see other departments, how they worked, and I got like a real training situation. Do you think, because you mentioned also every training involves cost?
Yeah.
So do you think companies, when they don't give you the opportunity to go through a cross training, is it a cost issue, or like you also mentioned, it's like they don't see the need to train you for that because most of the training programs are tailored to the company's needs?
Right. All right. So good question. So my personal opinion and from what I've experienced, it usually is because they don't see the benefit in you getting that particular set of training. All right. That's one.
I
Two,
see.
they don't want to take you away from your priorities. And three, they don't want to add an additional burden or additional requirement to the department where you're going to go cross train, right? Because if you cross train, you're cross training with someone. Right?
Exactly.
How's that going to impact their day-to-day job, right? If they have to take time to train you, and you're stopping them to ask questions, and they have other things that they have to do, that they're not in learning mode, they're in teaching mode. And meanwhile, their boss is still like, hey, I need that report, or this is due tomorrow. We have this client, or whatever the case may be, but they're training you, right? And so it's you have to have the timing down with that, and also the managers, whoever the immediate bosses are, they kind of have to agree, like, okay, let's do some cross training. Maybe you send two people, I send two people, and it's a reciprocal type situation, right? Where we both benefit, and we can somehow start to tie in what your department does to what my department does and build some efficiencies together, right? And that's really what I think that's the first step is if we want to cross train, how is this cross training going to benefit the two departments or two sections, whatever areas, right? And how do those things tie into the organizational objective, right? If we come together and cross train, it could be a great idea, because when you cross train, you save a lot of money. Really, it's just a matter of time and how well can the folks that are part of that process, how well can they manage their day-to-day activities in addition to learning. All right.
I had
So,
the.
but
Go ahead, sir.
no, go ahead. All right.
Uh, why? Because I saw the benefits of cross training, like you already mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in manufacturing, there is always the trend to train a worker on skill A,
Mm-hmm.
and he will keep performing that skill A 8 hours a day, but he doesn't know skill B because another, uh, I mean, someone else on a machine B got
Yeah.
the
Mm-hmm.
that specific. But the problem, you see the benefits of cross training when there is a staff absent
Mm-hmm.
and there is no space to. So if so, one of the solution I found is I train the whole staff on A and B. Task
Mm-hmm.
A. So in that case, if there is some absenteeism, someone is absent, so everybody can do the other employee or the others. I mean, A can do B and B can do A. You see,
Mm-hmm.
and
Absolutely.
and it helps the company save a lot of money.
Yeah. No, it definitely is a good point. Go ahead, Jay.
I mean, I've got two questions,
Mhm.
and the questions are longer. So unless they're done, I can wait.
Okay. Yeah.
I have no other question. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. So I have two questions. One is for the evaluation criteria.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say we know that the employees are assets and we know that the assets are tools. As managers, if we don't know how to utilize these tools and if the performance is negatively affected at the time of evaluation, how can the organization make sure whether the fault was of the trainer or was it the issue with the trainee or was it because of external factors? If the blame comes on the employee and they get fired.
Well, I mean, that it's not going to happen in just one instance. You see what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Like one occurrence of it is not going to get that employee fired. It has to be a pattern of something habitual, right? And if it's happening to one person, if it's on the part of the training or the trainer, it's going to happen to more than one person, right? And it's going to happen over a series of time, right? But if it's the employee who just is not picking up on things, you're going to see that pretty quick, and it's gonna be self-evident that this person just hasn't comprehended what they need to comprehend, right? Because if everyone else around you is getting it, then you're probably the outlier that's not getting it. Nothing wrong with that, just that you may need more, you may need a different way to learn, right? Or you may need more time to absorb the material, because some people are different. Like some people, I equate it to lawyers. There's a difference between courtroom lawyers and every other lawyer. Okay. If you've ever met a courtroom lawyer, somebody who's a prosecutor or somebody who's in the courtroom all the time, those are the sharpest, fastest thinking people you will ever meet. They have an answer for everything within a nanosecond. Okay. Their brain is processing
Yeah.
so many things all at once, and you wouldn't believe it, right? As compared to a corporate lawyer or some lawyer who's sitting behind a desk, a patent lawyer, who has time to kind of go through their things, right? And so they're learning at different paces, right? It's the same thing for the classroom, the same thing for corporate America. So, if you have someone who has a deficiency and is not necessarily picking it up as, as the average person would, then you probably need to look and see, okay, what's going on, right? As Christopher said, right? What's going on? There's other factors there. It's not just that the person isn't picking up on it. There's a mental block, there's a physical block, there's, something else is happening aside from just I don't understand it. Like, okay, you don't understand it, but why don't you understand it? Like, okay, where are you getting stuck, right? You get step one, step two, step three, or you get stuck at step four. Okay, so maybe we need to go into step four, right? Like when you're learning calculus, and you're doing chains, right, or differentials, derivatives. There's a process to that, right? There's building blocks to that, right? So if you get stuck on one part of how just simple derivatives, right? You can't do chain. You can't do differentials because you don't understand derivatives. And that's the foundation of them all. So I would go back and say, okay, like let's work on your derivatives. Let's get you to understand that process. So um that pretty much be the way I would approach it. Okay.
I mean, so I mean, it could be because of different training styles. A person
Absolutely.
could not be accustomed to that, and
Mhm.
there could be many other factors. But now the second question is on the other side. So for the compensation, on the flip side, if the organization has profited, how can
Mhm.
the employee make sure that they get credit at the individual level? If the organization or the unit got better because of the employee and not because of training or other external factors.
I got you. Yeah. So depending on what the company has set up, right? That really is an internal function where the company will decide, okay, if the unit, department, whatever does, such and such, then cool. But when it comes to like the individual, it really is up to the direct supervisor to highlight those things, right? To say, hey, Zed went to this training and his work increased 10%. All right. How does that translate when it comes to his performance evaluation? Okay. How do I make sure I annotate that in a way that's tangible and that people can see that he's progressed, right? So it probably be a quantitative metric. It probably be like I said, 10%, right? You processed 600 last quarter. You went to this training. You came back. You processed 850 this next quarter, right? That's a tangible, quantifiable metric that I could look at and say there's been an improvement, right? And so if there is some incentive attached to that, that's great, right? If there's not an incentive attached to that, it's up to you to say, hey, when it comes time for your performance evaluation, you go in and say, you know what? I've went from X to Y to Z. I think I need an X to Y to Z up in my pay. All right. This is when you go and you this is when they tell you, hey, if you're going for a pay raise, you better have the reasons why. Okay.
So do we have to keep a tab as an employee of what we
Absolutely.
did and what we achieved? So
You
when
should
it comes to
always
the, yeah.
you should always keep a tab of the things that you've done that you know that you've improved on, especially if it's something that the institution provided to you as a resource for learning, and you took it and it worked, and you've increased your proficiency, your productivity. You need to be able to you need to highlight that. You need to go and speak up to, because that's something that they will immediately and easily recognize because it's theirs. So you're trying to tell me you went to this training and your production went up 20% because of our training that we provide you. Yes, right? They have nothing but to say, like, okay, cool, we need to give you a raise because guess what? You're not more valuable, you're contributing more to the company. And they will see that, okay, well, if we don't give this person this raise or talk about some increase in benefits or something like that, they're going to leave with the skill set that we just taught them on our
Mhm.
dime. They're gonna leave, or they're gonna be dissatisfied, right? And as much as you've gotten better at your training, but if you're not getting compensated for it or acknowledged or getting the intrinsic or extrinsic reward or motivation that you're looking for, you're probably gonna go, hey, you know what? They're not really appreciating what I'm doing here. I'm gonna do the minimum, but in the meantime, I'll be looking for another spot because I got this new skill set that I know is marketable.
So when is the time to let them know? Is it quarterly basis or on
No,
things
that's
as
something you
things happen or at the
Yeah,
year
that,
end?
that's situational. That really is situational to see, okay,
Mhm.
because just because you have an improvement in the area doesn't necessarily mean that the company is really like prioritizing that, right? They may be like, great, they may have an attitude where like, hey, we sent you to training, yeah, we expect you to get better. And you want a cookie, right? They may have that attitude, right? And so it really is,
Right.
it really is about the situation and reading the room and understanding, okay, I've gone 6 months. I've increased this much, right? If it's something ridiculous, like, hey, I did the
Yeah.
training, my sales went up $1 million. That's something that, hey, you gotta go to the boss and say, look, boss, I did $1 million extra than I did last year or the year before, whatever the case may be. Is there some possibility we can start talking about a raise, right? Even if it's not a full blown like big raise, but maybe incrementally we start talking about, something, a different pay structure for me, or maybe a promotion, right? It may not be a direct pay raise. It may come in the form of promotion, like or more responsibilities, or maybe some projects that are outside the scope of your normal activities, right? Which will, in turn garner you more money, right? Hey, we pay separately for this. This is a special project, so you're gonna get a 1099 for this, or you're gonna get special project pay, right? So there's ways to do it, but it really is situation really depending on this, what's going on and what the environment is calling for.
Okay. Yeah,
Professor,
got it. Thank you.
Yes, Joshua.
yeah, I had an experience. I mean, my former organization in Nigeria,
Mm-hmm.
is a university set in Babcock University.
Mm-hmm.
Every year they send their workers, based on department requirement and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
so trainings. And when after the training, if it's like a week or sometimes 2 weeks, you come back with a report of what you gained
Mm-hmm.
and the what could be a new thing that you want to introduce at your job to improve whatever you are doing that you gain or benefited from the training. So you do a kind of report and
Mm-hmm.
submit to the department, which everybody in that department will benefit from there.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of the year, you as maybe team leader or member of the team, you will give an account of what you are able to do with that training,
Mm-hmm.
what that has, the impact of such in your work and
Mm-hmm.
what you have achieved so far doing it. I think with that, the organization can easily pick something from there and they can get a good feedback. And if it's not profitable to the university, they will not send you to that training or trainees again.
Yeah.
So they will start from there and maybe look for other trainings that we need to learn or to improve on our job or not even talk about it again.
Yeah. No, it's a good point, and it kind of goes in line with what Rad was asking, right? Cross
Yeah,
training, right? And so, we have something, or we just say something like, and this is intentional, right? This is deliberate. When we do a trainer training, okay? What you're describing is trainer basically, right? The company identifies an area where they want to develop a skill set, but they don't necessarily need it right now, and they don't want to spend the money per se in doing a third party or having somebody train the whole company. So what they do is they send a group, a certain amount of people to the training, and those people learn the training and they have to come back and train the whole company systematically.
exactly.
So it works really well because it saves costs. It also reinforces the learning for those people that went to the training, right? Because it gives them an opportunity to really get deep and delve into the training because they know they're gonna have these questions from the trainees, right? And so it helps them to get in and really kind of dig deep and really understand what they learn. And it's great because it facilitates cross training, right? And it works across the kind of the spectrum for the whole company. In that, okay, at least I know that one, I have a group of people that understand this particular skill set and can perform, and two, everybody in the company has been exposed to it, whether or not they have a working knowledge of it, it doesn't matter, right? Because everybody's in there have working knowledge of it. I just need to be exposed for them to know, like, hey, this is coming down the pipe, or this is something that you're gonna have to get proficient at, and this is the training, and they also know where to go when they need to get more information on the training, right? This is the group of folks that we have. They're doing trainer. Go talk to them so you can kind of figure it out. But that's a good point, Joshua.
Okay.
Uh, Anybody else comment? Question? No? All right. Okay. Let's take a quick 5 minutes. Come back at 6:50. Okay.
I like your presentation, Dr. Case, today.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
I mean, I always like them, but especially today, I have a special interest in this topic.
Yeah, training is always interesting because it's really underestimated. As far as the um the importance of it, and also the fact that it kind of gets used sometimes in a blanket way where the first thing that people kind of go to if something's wrong is like, oh, you need to go train, send the training. And it's not always the issue, but training does help, but it's not always the kind of the end all be all. And so a lot of companies, you know they use it to kind of cover things up when they should really be looking at other things. But it definitely is an interesting topic, and the amount of money that gets spent on training, just not even for the training itself, just for the other stuff, food, mileage, all those other things that you don't really think about, um, that goes with training, and how you deliver the training, right? And who's doing it. It's all important. So
Thank you, sir.
absolutely, right. All right, back in action. Okay, so still on the topic of, training delivery, okay? Excuse me. Now, more than ever, a lot of our training, excuse me, pardon the sirens and everything, it's the hazards of living downtown. Always something going on. All right. Okay. So especially nowadays, we're moving further and further away from, traditional brick and mortar training. All right. We're moving to, or have moved to, online. And it really came in beneficial when during COVID, helped us to continue, not only working, but people continue their, academic journey because of Zoom, right? Prior to that, if we, something like the pandemic would have stopped school in general, right? Would have stopped everything, okay? And so computer-based instruction has really evolved from, I remember from the very first time I had something that was computer-based to what we have now, right? Totally different, but at the same time, the pros and cons are still remain the same for the most part, right? Computer-based instruction, anything that is done online, the most important feature of it is really that it's convenient. Okay, you'll be able to, do it on your own time when you feel like it within that time frame that's allotted, right? But for the most part, you have 24/7 access. You can do it when you feel like it. Uh, you can easily, do supplemental research and look up other things and that kind of thing, to help you um, through your journey, right? You can customize it. You can make it any which way you want. It's not as expensive, right? There's a lot of pros to it, right? Now, some of the cons that, very evident as you start to go on and you start to see the impact long term when it comes to, computer-based instruction or online instruction, is that it's a kind of a lonely space. Okay, there's no interaction, there's no real stimulation that's involved, right? And in many instances you have to be self-motivated to get the work done. Okay, if you don't have the initiative, you don't have the drive, there's really no one there to really push you to make you do these things, right? There's no one there to push you to attend the class or to look at the videos, watch the PowerPoint, read the readings, right? There's no peer pressure when you have computer-based instruction. And so because of that, it's it's a useful tool, and it's one that we're getting more and more to because we are a nation of convenience, right? Um, but at the same time, um, it's it's not the best way of learning. Okay, first thing. Secondly, it requires a certain amount of technical acumen. Third, it requires a certain amount of technical equipment. Okay, you have to have the internet. No getting around that. You have to have some output feature, right? You have to have some kind of way to interface, right? So you need a laptop, you need a phone, you need something, right? And you need a good, strong connection, right? Not only do you need the connection, but it needs to be something that's workable, that's strong, that's not going to, disconnect or whatever the case may be, not be there when you need it, right? Or it's just down, right? And so those are some of the drawbacks. In addition to um, relying upon students' integrity in many situations to do the right thing and be honest about the work they're doing. All right. If you're taking a quiz and the quiz is closed book and you just gotta, they're trusting you on your word, the code of honor, to take the quiz straight up. 9 times out of 10, most people are not going to do that. Okay, they're going to go seek out resources, find the answers, whichever way they can. And this is why, a lot of institutions and organizations have gone to open book, open resource, because, and it makes sense. I don't expect someone to necessarily know everything there is to know. And in in your real life, in the day-to-day activities, if you don't know something, you go look it up, right? You go look it up. And I'd rather you do that than try to memorize stuff, right? Notice I said memorize. I didn't say learn, memorize. Because that's what typically happens, is that people memorize things, and then once they're done with it, they dump it. They don't really have an understanding of what it is that they were doing. They just did it because it was a question that was posed to them, and it's, there were points attached to it, so they got the answer. But why is that the answer? I don't know. What are the inner workings of the answers? I don't know. What else is supplemental to the answer? No idea. I just know this is the answer, and I gave it, I found it, I'm good. Right. And so having the ability to kind of reach back and say, you know what, let me do the research and figure this out, is one of the reasons why, you know, computer-based instruction or online instruction is now more to the point where if there's an evaluation, it's more like, hey, it's open book. It's, you can go, use the PowerPoints. We try to still refrain, at least for our school, from using the internet, and just using the resources that we make available, because that's where all the pertinent information is at, consolidated, for you. And so no need to go to the internet where you might get 10 different variations on one answer. All right. Just go to the source that we provided you, and you'll get the answer that's definitely the right one, because that's the one we provided you, right? And so you have these kind of pros and cons that go with it, but really, computer-based instruction, online instruction is really the wave of the future, right? It's just the way things are going, where we're not, there's going to be less and less people coming to a physical classroom, and it's going to be more of this, kind of, learning via technology, learning on your own, right? And this is why it's really critical that people understand some of the technology that's coming up, about in our society. They understand how to navigate and move through certain things. Think about going to get a job now. If you don't know how to use PowerPoint, if you don't know how to use Excel, if you don't understand Zoom, you're probably not going to get the job. Okay? Because I'm really basic Word, right? And and these are things that I think in the United States that we take for granted, that everybody knows, right? But even in the US, I've had plenty of people that work for me that have never ever seen a PowerPoint, much less built one. Have no idea what to do with Excel. They can barely spell it. They go XCEL, all right? And so there's a gap where they need to be, they need to fill it, right? And of course, depending on your age and what is you trying to attain, you have to have certain skill sets, technical skill sets, in order just to be relevant in the, competitive space as far as getting a job, right? So if you go to interview, you don't have those basic requirements, you're not going to get the job, all right? And so things are kind of going that way. Even meetings that we have, we have them through Zoom, right? Virtual teams really, is what we have now, more than we had before. Right? I've worked with virtual teams, but I mean when I first started working with virtual teams, we were doing it through VTC, right? Video teleconference, right? Big old room, big old screen. There's all these things on the table, and you had to go to a place. You just couldn't do it at home. You had to go to a place. And for me, it was, in a secret, in a skiff. Everybody knows what a skiff is, kind of a secret. I forgot the compartment. I can never say that word. Um, Either way, it's a secret room with no windows and
Secured compartmental
lies.
something
Right.
facility.
Facility, yeah. I can't
Yeah.
remember. But either way, right? They were very kind of in these remote, very secret, very, places that most people didn't have access to. All right. Nowadays, we got Zoom, we got Microsoft Teams, we got, QuickTime, we have everything under the sun. Zello, we have, WhatsApp, you whatever form, FaceTime, whatever form you want to interact with someone, you can, right? And so this is going to be, more and more the mode of learning, and people are going to start to, you know, uh, more so than now, start detaching from the physical brick and mortar of learning, right? And there's nothing wrong with that because it provides convenience for people's schedule, right? But at the same time, it's definitely a different learning experience, and it's not a learning experience that everybody learns from, right? I'm not a very good online learner. I'm very much a physical, in the classroom, professor in front of me type learner. I need to do it. You can talk to me till I'm blue in the face, or till you're blue in the face, but I'm not gonna pick up on it till I do it myself. Yeah, thanks, Christopher. But it's definitely the way things are going, right? And you're going to see more and more people, as you can see already. Once the major institutions start doing online courses and offering online degrees, that's when you knew, okay, computer-based instruction had arrived, right? When the Harvards and the Princetons and the Yales and the, you know, uh, Penn States, when those schools start offering online degrees, you know, it's a thing. It's mainstream, one. Two, it provides them with multiple revenue stream, right? More exposure to a bigger part of the population, right? The excuse of, hey, I don't want to go to class anymore, it doesn't fit my schedule, is no longer viable. Now it's, hey, you can get your degree if you want, right? If you don't want to, that's a different story. But if you want, then you can, right? And so computer-based instruction, for training is one of the forms that we definitely employ. You do, and it usually is attached to kind of basic training like sexual harassment training, DEI training, things of that nature, where everybody has to have it. So they'll create a platform where the training will be open to everyone, and you have a week to do it. It's the same for everybody, and it's easy, low cost, low maintenance, and good to go. Managed by a third party usually, and it's easy, right? No big deal. So important aspect of training, and how do we decide when to use computer-based instruction? When do we decide to have face-to-face instruction, right? When is it just better to physically be in the presence of someone and watch someone do something, right? Especially nowadays with deep fakes and all this other stuff, and people can pretend that they're doing things. It just there's a lot of things that go with it. But all in all, it's going to keep moving forward and become more prominent within the training environment. And it's unlikely that we go back to classroom, right? Because I can remember. I mean, there's six of you that attend class now. I remember when I first started teaching, my classes used to at least be about 20, 25 people physically in class. Now I have six. Sometimes I have two, right? Anyone else is online, right? So it doesn't necessarily contribute to a very rich learning environment because you're pretty much stuck to your perspective, and that's that. You don't get the benefit of hearing other people and trying to debate and go back and forth about and have discussions, except in the forums, right? You don't really get a chance to interact socially with anybody. And part of the learning process is the social aspect, right? The team aspect of it all. Okay. All right. Any questions, comments? I'll move on. Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. So we talked about earlier, right? Evaluation and how important it is when it comes to the training program. Okay. So again, as it says, evaluation criteria should be established in tandem with and parallel to training objectives, okay? And so when we look at the training that we're giving and we look at the evaluation process, they have to match up, right? They have to have what we call validity, okay? And this is something that you're going to be real familiar with real soon. Reliability and validity, okay? So when we talk about validity, we're talking about, does the evaluation measure what it's supposed to measure or evaluate what it's supposed to measure, okay? In the sense that if we sit here and we talk about strategic HR the whole week, and then test time comes on Friday, and I give you a math test, probably not a valid evaluation. I'm not testing what I taught you. I'm not testing what I trained you on. I'm testing something else, right? So what is my expectation for the class? They're probably going to fail. Okay, everyone's going to fail unless they have some, knowledge about what it is I'm talking about, some prior knowledge. They're going to fail. If it's based off training and the evaluation process, it's not going to work. So it's important that, when you put the evaluation together, that it really assesses the things that have been taught. Okay, and so within a regular session, regular semester, there's no way I can cover everything. All right. I mean, we can barely get through a PowerPoint as it is in class, right? This is why I always tell you, go back, review the PowerPoints, right? On your own. Because you're responsible for that stuff. Okay. If it shows up on the test, that's within the scope of your responsibilities as a student to know the material that is presented within the context for this particular week. Regardless if I physically taught it or not, it's material that needs to be learned that was provided to you, right? And so when the evaluation process comes up, you should be able to get through that evaluation process because everything that is being evaluated is available to you or has been, presented to you in some shape, form, or fashion, right? But we need to be careful with how we create our evaluation and make sure that it is valid and it is reliable, right? That if I give you an exam when we talk about reliability, that the results are going to be consistent. Okay. And what I mean by that is that if you come in on Friday, the first day of class, I give you kind of an inventory exam, right? I give you a pop quiz to kind of see like where you're at in a particular discipline, right? And then I don't teach you anything else. Okay. I don't say anything. And then Monday you walk in, I give you another exam, right? What do you think is going to happen? What do you think the results are going to be?
Fail,
Right?
and then drop the class.
Yeah, maybe drop the class, but the results are the results should be consistent with your first run, right? Because nothing has happened from the first time you took it to the second time you took it, right? The results should be pretty much the same, right? They may fluctuate a little bit, but not too much. They shouldn't deviate too much, right? And so that way I know that the instrument or the test, the evaluation is reliable because it's consistent, right? In spite of, not in spite of, but in lieu of me providing new information, right? So now you've taken the first test, everybody did horrible. I give you some information, right? I taught you something. You take the exam again, my expectation is that the grade should go up, all right? So that way I know whether or not learning occurred, but I also know that the evaluation itself is reliable, all right? Because I taught you something, I'm evaluating on the things I taught you, and so that evaluation is trying to measure how much you learn, right? And so I should see an uptick in scores from when you first took it, right? Because in between, learning occurred or should have occurred anyway. Okay. And so these particular concepts are going to be crucial to you as you start to look at, your instruments for your dissertation. All right. when you start doing your data collection, right? Are you asking appropriate questions that pertain to your topic and that the participants can realistically answer based on their experience, right? Based on their exposure, right? Is the instrument valid? Okay. Am I asking the right questions again that from the stuff that you've been told, all right? Am I asking you the right questions to see whether or not you understood those things, right? And so those things are going to come in very, very, going to be very important to you moving forward in your dissertation process, right? When you're picking out an instrument and trying to figure out, okay, what's the best survey that I can use in order to facilitate, the data collection and get the data that is substantive and is relatable and makes sense, and will truly give me an idea of what's going on in my particular topic, my research question, whatever the case may be. All right, what we got here? We got the pyramid of the 4 levels of training evaluation. Okay, so results, behavior, learning, reaction, right? And so we kind of look at the different, kind of phases of training, right? Always looking at the results, right? What is it that we're getting out of it? Did it improve the individual skill set? Did it improve the organization? All right. The behavior of not only the trainer, but the trainee, right? Are they doing things differently? Are they acting differently? Was there any learning that occurred, right? We hope that there's some learning occurred, but to what level, right? If I'm trying to pack in a bunch of stuff in a day, how much of it is actually be retained? Okay, it's kind of like your body, all right? People take a lot of protein, but your body can only process so much protein. The rest of it gets flushed down the toilet. Okay, you were taking 200-300, grams of protein. Your body can only do so much with it. It may absorb 80, maybe 90. All right, and after that, the rest of it gets wasted. So why not be more efficient in how you take in your protein? All right, same thing with the learning. How can I be more efficient in my instruction? All right, and the only way I'm going to really know that is that how much learning is occurring. All right, am I going too slow? All right, if I'm going too slow, the class might be bored, and so that boredom leads to distractions, or leads to I really don't have to try hard. I'm gonna go do something else, so I'm distracted in 8 different other things, right? So learning rate is important, right? And then just the reaction, right? Again, going back to what I said earlier about the feedback. Did you like the course? Did you like where it was taught? Did you like the trainer, right? Did you like the lunch, the breakfast? Was it too early? Was it too cold? Was it too hot? Right? There's a lot of things that go into play. What's up, Christopher?
So I was a contract trainer for 5 months and I taught a variety of classes. And
Mm,
every class, there was always way more information to teach than what I could teach in the 6 hour day. So
mm,
I would start the class with think of the top 3 things you want to learn, get into groups, come up with the top 3 things your group wants to learn, and then I'd put them out into um, a matrix,
mm,
and then I would build that out. And then at the end of the class, I would go back to that and I would make sure that we hit all of the points. And if anybody needed something followed up on, but that was like we didn't do evaluations necessarily, but that was the way I like made sure I kind of evaluated myself to make sure I taught the pieces the class as a whole wanted to use. And that was whether I had 3 people in class or whether I had 70 or 80 people in class.
right.
So I found that to be uh, very beneficial for, hey, these are the things a class wants to learn. I could speed through the whole book, but
Mm,
you're not going to learn anything. Or
right.
we could focus on what the group wants to learn.
Yeah. No, that is a really, really excellent point and an excellent tool that a lot of instructors use. I've used it before, right? And it really does help to kind of cull down the topics, right? Because there are things that I know I have to teach, right? They're fundamental concepts, they're pillars, right? But then there's other things that I know that students are looking for that they're like, okay, I'm looking to learn this, I'm looking to learn that, right? And so in order to get them more engaged, this is a good way to do it, to say, hey, tell me what it is you want to learn, right? And you know more than likely that the topics that they want to learn are already things you're going to talk about, right? And so it's easy to weave them in and say, yeah, okay, we'll cover it and look like a hero, like you're catering to them individually, right? But you're really not. You know, you already were going to teach it, and it's very unusual that someone comes up with something that's totally out of the box. Like, what is I don't like? We're not even going to talk about that, right? It's very unusual, but it does happen, right? But at least you've garnered their opinion, which goes a long, long way with the students and their engagement, all right? Because it I don't know what it does. It just for them, it's just a sign of respect. It's just a sign of, hey, you really are thinking about us as students. You really care about, you know, what we get out of this. So this is what we like to get, and that's a great way to approach the learning process, and trying to maximize, you know, what it is that you're teaching. The only downfall I have with that is that if it's a super duper large group, it's just harder because you got to break them up into bigger groups, and then sometimes it doesn't. It's not. There's no clear commonalities as far as what they want to learn. You know, because there's so many different like things. They're like, oh, let's learn this. I want to learn. I want to learn that. Everybody's got these little, you know, cache of things they want to learn that are subsections of subsections that are subsection. Like, well, we're not going to talk about that. You know, we will maybe briefly, right? But in general, it usually works out pretty well. So good, definitely a good resource and good tool to use in classroom. Any other comments on that? What Christopher said? Good. Okay. All right. So OD. All right. So OD is the fancy name that corporations use, and basically it's training. Okay. Organizational development is training. Organizational development and change management go hand in hand. They're buddies. Okay. Hand in glove. All right. And why would OD go hand in hand with change management? Why would those two things be connected?
Because you're a lot of times changes, things that are changing have to be trained. You have to learn what the changes are and how to implement them into your daily job.
Exactly.
And that's why organizational development slash training works with change management.
Yep.
Because if something has changed, you got to be taught how to do the change.
Right. When you're training, you're changing something. Something's changing, right? Process, behavior, outcome, inputs, outputs, something is changing, right? And that change will affect everyone differently, depending on the level of change it is, right? If it's a organization-wide change that, we're going to a new system, or we're using a new platform, or we're, doing it a new way, right? That's a change. And so that change may interfere with someone's normal habitual routine. All right. And so this is where you kind of have to figure out, okay, how do I manage change? Okay. Because change is not easy for most folks. Okay. It's extremely difficult. All right. Think about if you're trying to, most relatable one is people, they want to lose weight. All right. But they don't know where to start. No idea, right? And then they figure something out, right? Get a good plan, they get a train and everything, and then a week goes by and they still haven't started yet because it's a change, right? And when do I find time to do this, right? Most of us that are, a little bit older or whatever, or have jobs and that kind of thing, right? If you want to work out, you're probably gonna have to wake up in the morning early, like 5, to get to the gym, get your workout in, to get back home, then to shower. You can shower at, the gym and everything, but whatever it is you do, right? Or you do it after work, right? Most people don't want to do anything after work, but go to happy hour. Okay, they don't want it. They don't want to go to the gym, right? And so that change is difficult for them. And so because of that, right, the change doesn't get implemented, and you don't see anything change. Nothing is different from what you were doing last time, and you don't see any benefits. And so now you start to say, "Oh, this is a terrible idea. This is useless. The change is, I'm not losing any weight." Well, you haven't really trained properly. You haven't really implemented the change, right? You haven't embraced, how long does it they say does it take to form a habit?
21 days, I think, is
21
what
days,
the
right?
latest.
21 to 30 days, something like that, right?
Yeah, 21 days.
Yeah. They say for it to be really, really tied in is 90 days, but 30 days initially. If you can stay consistent 30 days, have it. All right. And I found out to be true. All right. Most folks, they stick to something for a month, they're good. All right. It's just getting them in that fucking routine, to get them going initially. What's up, Zane?
Yeah. I think for me, it takes 9 days.
It could very well take 9 days. If that's
Mm.
what it is for you, yeah. Because you may have different drive, you may have different commitment, you may have different dedication, you may have different timeline, all right? Where, it's kind of like this funniest thing to me I always see when and I'm not trying to single out women, but women that are about to get married, they always what's the one thing they think about, and they have this timeline on making sure they do this certain thing so that the wedding would be good. There's something that most of them always worried about.
Losing weight.
Losing weight. There it is. Okay. I have to lose 15, 20 pounds in 3 months. You will never find anyone more dedicated than a woman that's going to get married and her dedication to losing weight. It's amazing. Okay. It is amazing. That drive, that just, it's just incredible, right? And so you have to have that drive, and you may have that drive, which is 9 days for you, right? It might be 3 years for you or 2 years for you to finish your doctorate, right? Because you are doing it, you're picking up on it a little quicker. You form these habits where I study here, I work here, recreational free time here. You have a balance, you got the routine, you got this balance down. And it's different for everyone. It could be 9 days for you, it could be 5 days for Christopher, it could be, a week for Nehemiah, it could be 2 days for Joshua. It's whatever, but everybody's typically different, but in general, 30 days is works, but if it's less, that's great. That's really great, right? But some habits, you form, if it takes you 9 days to become an alcoholic, then you got some problems. All right. You go.
I think
What's that?
there's another saying. They say most people don't have attention for more than 30 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's it. And most people don't have. That's why classes used to be 50 minutes. If you go to traditional school, you go semesters, class is only 50 minutes.
That
Right.
was for more like a high school and middle schools.
Wait, for the 50 minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah, they definitely have a high school and middle school because they can't pay attention at all. All right. But well, I don't know how it is in undergrad anymore at bigger schools. I know when I went to school, I went to fairly large school. We had about 35,000 students in a semester. Our classes would average 50 minutes for the most part, and it was 3 times a week though. So because most people can't pay attention that long, after a while you just start going everywhere. Even the instructor start thinking about different things. What do you got to do next? What next class are you teaching after this? What kind of grading you have to do? And so it kind of go all over the place. The way we have it now, we format it because of one day a week. We got to squeeze it in. This is where all the other stuff comes in. You have to do research discussions or just discussions in general, LEs, right? And take a quiz. it's because they're trying to compensate for those hours of non-contact, right? That we're not getting in the classroom. But good point. Thank you, Nara. That's a good point about the schools and the way they do it, right? But yeah, so organizational change, change management kind of go hand in hand because again, if you're going through some kind of development for the organization, it's going to require some changes, right? And so the change within the company could be a cultural change, it could be a physical change, it could be a change in location, and it's going to disrupt the operations or whatever the case may be, right? When I worked at Toyota, again, the only reason I'm not at Toyota is because they left California and they went to Texas, and that was a change that impacted everyone within the company, but it had a really huge impact on the community of Torrance in LA because there were generations of people that had worked in LA that were from that area, right? Because they had been there, Toyota headquarters had been there for a while, for over 40 years. And so we had daughters, granddaughters, grandsons, parents that were, 3 or 4 generations of people that worked at Toyota and were still working at Toyota, right? And so when they decided to go and leave, it affected not only the organization itself, but the community was devastated, right? Because now I have to ask myself, am I willing to leave my community that I've grown up in order to keep my job, right? And so for the company, we have to analyze, okay, how many people do we think are going to go with the company? How many people are going to stay? How many people are going to be retired because they're retirement eligible and not go with the company, right? How much money is that going to cost us, right? And more importantly, how are we going to fill those gaps, right? How are we going to fill those manpower personnel issue gaps, right? So when we need to start looking at hiring more folks and having a recruiting campaign that's going to bring in people so I can start to refill my coffers, right? Get the people back in with the skill sets that I need because I'm basically having a brain drain, right, of my corporate knowledge, all right? So it's definitely important when it comes to OD, all right? Just a quick representation here of Exhibit 9.6, how training affects performance management and compensation, but you see that on the back end, performance and compensation definitely impact each other, right? Which is pretty evident, okay? So we want to get training, right? It's going to have it's kind of back and forth, right? Because my performance, right, and the things that I'm deficient in are going to help build this training, which hopefully comes back and I can get a better performance management, performance evaluation, right, which will affect my compensation. The training also does the same thing. It has an impact on compensation, right? So it's just a big kind of circle or loop, I should say, right? They all interconnect, right? Lack of training, poor training, or a very robust training program, or very competent people that want or seeking training, you'll see it manifest itself in the performance evaluations. But then you'll need to again, as Rad, was it Rad that asked? Who asked that question? Was that you, Zay, that asked the question about compensation? Yeah. That it has to be reflected in the compensation at some point because as you start to perform and do better and better, you're going to be looking for some compensation, whether it's a bump in money, a position, whatever the case may be, right? You're going to be looking for something to compensate you for your increased knowledge or your willingness to train and perform at a higher level, right? And so all these things are connected. And so when a company doesn't have a good training program, right, you definitely will see it in the performance, okay? And they will use that to justify your compensation, okay? Although that they're not providing a resource to you, they're going to say, hey, yes, you're performing well, but you can be performing better, right? Well, if I could perform better, how about you bring me some tools to, some resources that I can use to improve my performance? Well, we don't have it. We don't have the money, right? We're tight on the budget. Okay, the training budget's always tight, right? But it definitely is in line with compensation because, again, as people get better at their jobs and they start to perform well and they see an increase in their productivity, efficiency, and all those other metrics, they're going to be looking for an increase in compensation because they're contributing more. So it makes sense. My computer stopped working. All right, did not expect that. There we go. Oh, all right. All right, my PowerPoint said that's the end of the PowerPoint. So what time is it? 7:30, perfect. Okay. Any questions, comments? Anything?
Just on the research discussion for this week, you want answers to all three questions, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Again, just like last time, if there's multiple questions, you don't have to go super in depth. Just give me a paragraph or so on each or whatever the case may be.
And then for week 6 on that case study,
Mm-hmm.
like there was a case study in the week 4, I think 3 or 4
it.
there was a case study, and then there's also one this week that there's a case study within the stuff this week. Do you want us to do one or the other, or just the one from the previous week?
Let me double check, but more than likely, I want you to do the one from the previous week.
Okay.
But let me check. It shouldn't be any. It shouldn't be. It
I
should
thought
be the
I
same.
thought there was a case study in there for this week too.
No, there's a case study link. There's a link to this case study.
Right.
What's
Yeah.
in week 4 is actually the case study itself, so you can kind of
No.
get an idea of, like, get prepared, sort of. I think,
Yeah,
but
there's no case study for this week.
yeah, this
No,
year.
no, no. I
Next
thought there
week.
was a link for one in there.
Yeah. So let me double check and see, but they should be both the same. Yeah, it should be just one. I don't think you have any options on this one. I think it's just one case study, and you're going to use the same groups that you're using right now. Okay. So we're good to go. All right. Any other questions or comments? Anything? All right.
No questions.
Okay, I appreciate it. So there's one more PowerPoint. Take a look at it. It's on performance management systems. Take a quick look at it. Pretty straightforward. There's some things in there that, if we were at a lower level HR class, we talk about, but on the strategic level, we really don't need to talk about the 4/5 rule and all this other kind of stuff that really has to do with fairness and equality and equity and that kind of thing. They're just really more subtopics on a grander scale of, just aggregate, like, hey, you got to be fair when you're hiring, firing, recruiting, all this stuff, right? Promotions. There has to be some fair and balanced way of doing it, and it has to be measurable, right? And that people can see that you're being fair, and it's tied to diversity and some other things. But at the end of the day, your performance really hinges on how you perform and who's evaluating you, and their lens and their perspective on things, and making sure that you have that relationship with them, that they are objective and fair, right? And being unbiased is part of being a leader and giving people a fair assessment. Just because I don't like you doesn't mean I'm not gonna grade you fairly, right? Objectively. My feelings and what I think about your personal life or what you look like have nothing to do with your performance. Okay? And that's the way it should be. All right. Aside from that, I don't have anything. Anybody else? No? All right, everyone. Have a good night. Stay safe, stay dry, and I will see you next Tuesday in class. For those that.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Thank you.
Good
Thanks.
night.
Good night.
Right.
Yeah, good night.
Good night.
No
Bye.
problem.
Professor,
Yes.
I just want to talk to you alone.
Yes. Go
So for my assignments which I have to submit, I I think all assignments are not open yet. I won't be able to submit for week 2 and week 3 for my assignment.
Send me an email, Ruben, and so I know which assignment you need me to open.
Okay.
I
And then
think
I'll
Ru
go on. Go ahead, right.
actually, yeah, we actually have a grade from the week 2 assignment. That was the with Brad, Ruben, and me.
Mhm.
So I think that would be good actually. I had all my grades. So do we have
Okay.
to do it again?
No. Now, if
Okay.
if it's a grade, they already know. Ruben is a different situation where he
Yeah,
didn't.
okay.
Yeah, Ruben's yeah.
Uh-huh.
So Ruben,
I'll just let you know.
yeah. So Ruben, so because week 2 was a research discussion, a group research discussion. So
Mm-hmm.
I
But
think
I'm not. It is saying that I haven't submitted in week 2.
week 2 what quiz or
Research discussion.
Yeah, you probably need to get with your group. So that
I did it with Rad and Nara and me. We were 3 together.
and you didn't, and there's no grade for you.
No.
Okay, send me an email.
Okay.
Let me know
I guess
all your
yeah.
deficiencies,
It's
and then
status working.
yeah, it's probably just something because if you were with Rad and
Yeah.
group, yeah, you have a grade. It might not be popping up for whatever reason, but and if they didn't
Okay.
put your name on the work too, that's another thing. If your name had to be on the work.
I think I
Yeah.
edited it on the last time, so I
Okay,
think I
so
kept my name on it.
yeah, so
On all the slides too.
send me an email with all your issues, and then I'll look at it and fix it.
Okay. I will send for all whichever are not open for me. I'll send you an email and I'll try to finish by this week.
Okay, sounds good.
If I'm getting delayed in my personal assignment submission, but I'll try to finish it by this week.
Sounds good.
Alrighty.
What's up,
Thank you.
Nara?
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.